and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. My name is Peggy Tsai with BigID, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Wendy Batchelder, Senior Vice President of Global Data Governance and Chief Data Officer of Trust at Salesforce. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks for having me, Peggy. It's so nice to be here with you this morning.
Pleasure is mine indeed. So I'm looking forward to talk to you and just conversing about data governance today. So data governance can mean different things to different organizations depending on the level of data maturity, industry, and intended outcomes. Can you share with us today what your priorities are in your role as Chief Data Officer of Trust at Salesforce?
Of course. I think that many of us have similar priorities in this space, but I think it really comes down to a few things for me, especially being fairly new to the role. Number one, I really want to elevate the appreciation of data governance as true data enablement. I think that data governance gets a bad rap sometimes of being a constraint and not an enabler. And so I want to make sure that the company understands how data governance can really enable speed, velocity, understanding, and really unlock the insights that we all know that we need to run our businesses. I also have a bias towards simplicity and consistency. I think it's very easy to be complicated in the data space, but to be able to scale and unlock value, making sure that things are as simple as possible for all of our users is key for me. And then really bridging connectivity and its strength from all of our data assets. Like most companies, there's a great deal of growth and speed in which we have really penetrated the market. And so with that comes, I think, some challenges of just making sure that we have connectivity and understanding of what all of our data assets are and how to access them with, speed, ease, transparency, and therefore really building trust. So those are kind of three areas that I'm focusing on this year.
Great. So data quality is often viewed as a symptom and not the cause of a poor data governance program. It goes back to the trustworthiness of data and the utilization of it across business, data, and technology teams. How do you ensure that all users, not just those in data, can help with improving the quality of data in your organization?
I think it's really a couple of simple things, Peggy. So I think number one, just making sure that it's really practical for the individuals who touch data, whether they're a data expert or not. I think you have to learn to speak like the locals and really ensure that you are not using a bunch of jargon or, aren't making it too technical, but really explain to them in terms that matter to them why it's important to really take a judicious approach to data quality and explain what they can do in terms they understand, and also explain why that makes a difference. So I think we often try to get down to well, what do I need to do? But I think pausing and just taking a moment to help others understand why it matters and why what they do makes a difference can be really empowering, but also helps people generate buy-in for why that's important for the organization. And so I just really encourage people to spend time with their stakeholders and really get to know them, get to know the concerns, help explain things in terms that make sense to them. You can't go in there and start talking about data maturity models and the different facets of data quality. It's too technical right out of the gate. And so I think spending that time is really important.
Great, Wendy. And with that said, the why is so important. So building the business case is often the first step to securing a budget and resources for any data governance program. What are some examples of really powerful business cases that executives can articulate to really demonstrate the business value of data governance programs? And what key metrics are used to measure value?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's so true. I mean, building that business case is arguably the most important, maybe the most difficult job of a chief data officer, and one that I think can really make or break a program. And so what I would suggest is that, you start with being very basic. I would ask some questions before even getting to that point of the executive team. What's your understanding? And I think sometimes it's like, well, we know it's urgent, but we don't know why. And we don't know what the art of possible is. And I think in many organizations, they don't really know what to do with the chief data officer. They know they need one, but they don't know, what they should do. And so it's our job to help explain that. And so I would be really basic and start with, like, what can we not do now? What kind of risks do we have because we don't have strong, data governance or data management? And what could we do in the future after we've invested in data? I think it's important to make sure that teams understand that data is not a project. You don't just do it once. It's sort of like exercise and you're out of shape. Like, you definitely need to do some hard work to get into shape, but then there's the ongoing health benefits of staying in shape. And what does that look like? And so making sure that the context is there, I think, is also really important. But when it comes to metrics, you asked me kind of what key metrics are used to measure the value. I would really try to keep it simple. And in business terms, like, I wouldn't use metrics like, well, how many systems are you going to connect to your metadata platform? Like, that's important for your team to understand, just as an example, but thinking about it in terms of business needs. So are you able to improve transaction speed? Then use that metric. Can you identify opportunities to upsell to your customers? Use that metric. I just think that when we stick to things like, we're going to have a 10% improvement in data quality, like, well, what does that mean to the business? Really translating it into business metrics, I think, is really important.
That's a great suggestion, Wendy. So next question for you is about the challenges that data teams often cite in their organization is, one, we need to know our data. We need to know where our data is. And lastly, we need to know the quality of data. How can right technology help data teams solve these three challenges?
Well, I think that the three challenges are very well articulated. It's absolutely true. And I think that before you dive into the technology, I think you really have to spend some time understanding, like, what capabilities does the business really need to solve? I think that, as a data professional yourself, there's sort of like table stakes capabilities that we all need in order to build from there. But just really spending time understanding, what do we need to be able to do? What does the company need to empower? And that's going to be a little different based on your industry and your level of maturity. But I think it's important to really focus on the business needs and that being the driver for the technology of data. And so I do think that the right technology does help data teams solve those challenges. And I would definitely have a bias towards automation, simplicity, just making sure that teams can do things without having to continue to add resources. And part of that's because, we have such a shortage of talent in the data space across really all disciplines. And so, we do have to think about, how do we scale with talent that we have and the talent that is available in the market. And so I do think that forces us to take a more automated approach than maybe we used to. So that's something to think about as well. But I would really think about business capabilities as the driver for technology. But technology certainly is the enablement, but we can't forget the business needs and the people along that journey.
Thank you, Wendy, so much for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.
Thank you, Peggy.